Right, what's happening, people, and welcome back to the Joey Knight podcast. Welcome to my final video before tomorrow's game, 3 p.m. at Stamford Bridge against Sheffield United. In this video, I'm going to give you my starting 11 that I would like to see play tomorrow. I'm also going to speak about Mauricio Pochettino's press conference. We're going to talk about one or two of the players that have been heavily linked to Chelsea in the January transfer window in the media this week. Please do me a massive favour. If you're not already, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, get in the comments, and let me know your thoughts at the end of the video. Let's get into it. So Mauricio Pochettino has stated in his press conference that we are going to be without Robert Sanchez for a little bit of time now because of the injury he picked up in the last game against Everton, which means we've only really got one man to turn to, and that is Petrovic. I would have actually liked to have seen a little bit more of Petrovic already this season. A couple of chances in the League Cup where games I was at, specifically against Blackburn, against Brighton, I would have liked to have seen what Petrovic had to offer because he was very highly touted when he was brought over from the MLS, but ultimately we're going to get to see him in his first run out at Stamford Bridge on Saturday. Right back, I'm going to go with Malo Gusto. Now, I know that Malo Gusto is just coming back from injury, but we really haven't got all that many options, have we? Reece James is going to be out until sort of first quarter of next year, I'd say first third of next year, which is obviously gutting for us as a fan base, for the club, for the players that I know love playing alongside Reece James, and we're massively, massively disappointed with that. But ultimately, Reece can do nothing about it. It's his body, it's not his decision, and I think it's baffling sometimes when I see people write in the comment section saying he just needs to stay fit, and it's like, believe me, I'm pretty sure if he could just stay fit, he would do. But yeah, Reece James is out. We'll see Malo Gusto at right back. I did toy with the idea of having Cucurella in here, but I've just seen Pochettino's press conference and the injury updates, and I think that Cucurella is still out of the side. Also, you could obviously see Caicedo there, which we've seen last season for Brighton at times, but Malo Gusto, I think he'll be good enough to come back in. He did only pick up a bit of a knock. The centre-back pairing, do you know what? I'm going to stick with Axel Disasi and Benoit Badiashile. I actually thought that our defence wasn't that bad against Everton. A little bit of lack of pacing behind sometimes, and I think that comes with Axel Disasi. So when we look at the likes of Wesley Fofana, who obviously won't be back for quite a while, we'll have to see how he comes back from that injury, but he's a man that can offer pacing behind. Significant amount of time he's going to be out for, so I don't know how relevant that is. Thiago Silva, absolute legend of the game and someone we as Chelsea fans, including myself, will be forever thankful to. But I do think when we're talking about pacing behind and people being able to get in behind you in that defence, Thiago Silva is not really the best man for it now either. And as much as I would actually at this moment in time maybe say a Thiago Silva partnership with Benoit Badiashile might be the better one out of the two of them, I just sort of look at it and I think, well, this season is a little bit of a write-off now. And if we spring, a string, I should say, 3-4 wins together, that might change. But the way I'm looking at it right now is let's make the best out of a bad situation and let's use this time now to build for the future, bed players in, form partnerships and relationships. And I think the one between Disasi and Badiashile is one that obviously, took place at Monaco before. And it looks like it could be one that flourishes. So let's give it the opportunity to do so. Left back, I'm going with Levi Colwill. It's mad, isn't it, that I'm picking Levi Colwill in this position a lot of weeks now, and at the start of the season I was saying, he's not suited there, he shouldn't be there, and I still do think that his better role is in the centre-back space, but I think left-back at the moment, again, we're scarce of options. We obviously are hearing now that Newcastle aren't going to take up the offer to buy Lewis Hall, and that's why he hasn't been starting for them, which is pretty baffling, isn't it? They brought him in, there was a agreed fee, I think, of around 30 million, but he just hasn't been playing games, and I think it's because a significant number of games will mean that Newcastle have to sign him, and they don't want to be tied into that, and that's why you're not seeing him play. I can tell you now, if he was at Chelsea at the moment, I very much do think Lewis Hall will be playing, so we keep our eyes peeled on that, but for the moment, if Cucurella's out, Ben Chilwell's injured, obviously, Colwell's going to be our best option there, I think. Only because, and I do say this just to counter that, Ian Maatsen is a player that I really do want to see given more minutes to, and I wouldn't be averse to him starting there, but what I do think is under Mauricio Pochettino, he don't see Ian Maatsen as a left-back, so I think if we're going to see Ian Maatsen, it's going to be further up the field. The midfield, with me, I would stick rather than twist. Let the midfield do what it has done this season and pick itself. And that is Enzo, Caicedo and Gallagher just in front of them. We do need to see more from these boys. And we are going to speak about a potential midfield signing that has been rumoured to possibly be coming to Stamford Bridge later on in this video. So keep listening for that one. But that midfield three, I was bantered a lot for saying it was one of the best in the league. But I'll tell you what, it is a good midfield three. When they find their feet, they'll be all right. Let's give them the opportunity to do so. Raheem Sterling on one wing, Mykhailo Mudryk on the other wing, and Cole Palmer in the number 9 or false 9, whatever we want to call it. What we do know is Christopher Nkunku will be back in the squad. Do I even say back? Because he hasn't featured for us in a competitive game, but he'll be there. He'll be on the bench. I would imagine Christopher Nkunku will get about 5 or 10 minutes at the end of this game. I really don't think we're going to see a whole lot from Christopher Nkunku. You've got to remember, he's coming back from quite a serious injury that's had him out for a number of months, and also he's adapting to the Premier League. Now, say what you want about the level of the Bundesliga and the level that he's played at before, obviously in France and for the French national team, but the Bundesliga and the Premier League are two very, very different things, and realistically, the Premier League's just a whole different beast. So, injury or no injury, Nkunku would need time to adapt, and I do think that because of the injury especially, we need to give him that time to adapt. We also need to not hang our hopes too high on Christopher Nkunku, and this is something that Pochettino said in today's press conference, because Christopher Nkunku ultimately is the same as Kai Havertz coming over, the same as Timo Werner coming over. He is a player that has a really, really strong record in Germany, but that doesn't mean it's going to translate. Do I think it will? Yes, I have faith in him. I'm going to back him 100%, and I really do hope it will, but it doesn't mean it's going to translate straight away. What I do know is this: Amanda Broja, when he's played so far, does not look the same Amanda Broja before his injuries, although I very much hope he gets back to it, and I do think there's a strong possibility he could, but he's not looking the same as he was before his injuries, okay? Nicholas Jackson is a man that numbers are quite favourable to, but he has only scored in, 3, maybe 4 matches so far out of the 16 he's featured in, or whatever it is. I think it's 15, because he had a yellow card ban, didn't he? But Nicholas Jackson, he's not prolific, but his numbers are half decent. What I do know is Nicholas Jackson will be off to the African Cup of Nations within a couple of weeks, and then we're going to be out him probably for a couple of weeks. Amanda Broja is hit and miss with the injuries and isn't performing straight away, and in the match against Arsenal, I thought that attacking wise, that was one of the best games we had played so far this season, when we played with that sort of false 9, and it was between Palmer and Gallagher switching of who was highest up the field. And I think that with the addition of Christopher Nkunku coming back into this team, Christopher Nkunku is not a strong physical all-out number 9. He's a player that can play there, can play on either side, and can probably be very versatile across that front line. So for that reason, I think we should try this false 9 system out, give Christopher Nkunku minutes off the bench, and then slowly start to integrate him. And I think the false 9 system could work well. It sort of goes against what Pochettino does as a manager, because you haven't really seen him play with that false 9 system. But I will revert you once again to the Arsenal game. I thought we looked really good. So I want to know your lot's thoughts on that lineup. Who have I left out that should have been included? Who have I included that should have been left out? And what do you think of that lineup to go up against Sheffield United? Sheffield United are a team. Do I want to say on a bit of form? They're not really on a bit of form, are they? They've won one match, but it's because they've got a new manager, and we know how relevant and how emphatic that new manager bounce can be for teams down the bottom of the table. They're a team that I'm massively weary of. They're a team that will know exactly what to do against Chelsea, which is play a low block and try and catch us on the counter-attack. And I've got no doubt that they will do that. And when Chelsea have only won 1 out of their last 5 matches, and in my opinion, it wasn't the most convincing win against Brighton, it does worry me ever so slightly. But I tell you what, I went in to that Everton game with very, very low optimism and very, very low expectations. And for some reason, I really don't know why, I'm going into this one with quite high expectations. I do not think this Chelsea side are a bad team. The 2023 calendar year table would show that apart from relegated and promoted teams, we're the worst team in England. But I don't think they are. I think this Chelsea team are a very inconsistent team that obviously do need characters added to it. And for that reason, I think that the only good thing about being inconsistent is that it doesn't guarantee when you've lost a match or played badly that you're going to be the same in the next match. The bad thing is when you play well, it doesn't guarantee that you're going to continue to form. So inconsistency, probably the last thing you want, but inconsistency regardless is what we've shown, and I do think that this is a game that we will be able to get a win in. Not to disregard Sheffield United, but they can be scored against. I know that might have changed with Wilder coming in, but they can be got to. A couple of teams are beaten by a good few goals this season, and I really do hope win, however way it comes, is coming Chelsea's way. Let's talk about the rumoured additions we're hearing. The first one I want to touch on, because I've spoke about Victor Osimhen a lot, and I will touch on him, but the first one I want to touch on is Fulham's Palhinha. Now, let me just say, I know there'll be non-Chelsea fans and maybe even supporters of the club that will be ripping their hair out at the sound of me talking about us spending more money and bringing more players in, but I would also counter that by saying, you surely can't look at our squad and not realise that we do need one or two bodies. We are thin. We've spent $1 billion badly. Some of the signings that we've made will come good, and I genuinely think that some of them are already on their way to coming good. But when you look at squad depth, when you look at the fact we haven't got a proven goal scorer, when you look at a lot of the positions on the field that are looking weak at the minute, and yes, we're going through an injury crisis, it does suggest that maybe the money could have been spent a little bit better. However, Palhinha is a player that we're looking at for around £60 million, apparently, if the newspapers and the media are to be believed. He's over 6 foot. I think he's 6'2", which obviously ties in with what Pochettino said about us lacking height in our squad and something he wants to add to. He'd immediately come in and be the best tackler in our midfield. I would say that there's been a few lackluster moments when it comes to Caicedo's tackling ability so far. However, I do think he's very good and I do think he'll learn on the job. But in Palhinha, you have a man that is in the top 1 percentile in ground duels, tackles and interceptions. I was speaking to a friend of mine earlier, Simon, who's a lifelong Fulham fan, and he's had a season ticket for God knows how long. And obviously, I've watched Palhinha, but it's always better to get it off someone that's in the ground watching him week in, week out, not just every now and again on the TV and whenever Chelsea play Fulham. And he was telling me just how good and just how pivotal Palhinha is for those guys. He was saying that he's so committed to a challenge that sometimes he'll even drift a little bit out of position if he misses a challenge, doesn't make it, or is intercepted from. He will chase that man down and make sure he gets the challenge in. And I do think someone sort of overroaring and commanding like that is someone that Chelsea definitely need. Now listen, it's all well and good chasing men down to get challenges in, but if you can't make those challenges, it's pretty disappointing. You end up out of position. But time in, time out, Palhinha has shown he is a man that is able to. He was the player of the season for Fulham last season. Obviously, he made the team of the season in Portugal the year before that. And he is a player, especially at 28 years old. Now, I love that age, 28 years old, because that shows me that, okay, it's towards the sort of the upper end of where I'm willing to go to age profile wise. But I tell you what, at 28 years old, he's going to be battle hardened. He's going to have a good mentality and he's going to know what he needs to do from his game with probably minimal coaching when he first comes in to get the best out of his performances in a Chelsea shirt if he was to come. And I know another thing, and that is that Fulham and Chelsea do have a pretty good relationship, especially with doing business with each other over the last couple of years. It looked like Fulham were maybe in for Amanda Broho. We might still see developments on that. I know they were in for Callum Hudson-Odoi and we were happy for him to go there. And the transition for a player in terms of going from Fulham to Chelsea is an easy one. Your kids stay in the same school. You probably don't move house. We're literally a stone's throw away from them. So Palhinha, come across the road, mate. We want you over at Stamford Bridge. 60 million. Is it too much to spend on a 28-year-old? I don't know. I really don't know. But if he can go until he's, 33, 34, like a lot of these top pros are now doing, is it even that much to spend on him? Will there be sell-on value? I'm not too sure. Would he make the move? I definitely do think he would. Bayern Munich were in for him, but it looks like that interest has maybe cooled off now. And yeah, I think Palhinha would be a sensible signing. We've also got to remember here, right? We are going to be getting somewhere in the region of probably 40 million for Romelu Lukaku. It looks like we're going to move Trevor Chalobah on. There will be academy sort of players that will be 100% profit that we move on. And I've spoke already about how I feel regarding that situation. But how I feel is not how Todd Bowley and Clearlake feel. And they'll do what they're going to do. So if I can do something to soften the blow, maybe signing a Palhinha, who I do think would come in and be a real presence in that midfield and elevate others around him, could be a good move. The last thing I'm going to touch on here is the potential signing of Victor Osimhen. I've spoke about it time and time again, so you lot watching the channel know what I think of this man and know that I think that he could come in and do a job for Chelsea. However, a few people have been, I'd say, deflated this week when they've seen the news that Victor Osimhen has signed a new contract. Don't worry. If anything, that makes it more likely we're going to get Victor Osimhen, because the last contract, I don't believe, had a release clause in it, and this one now does. Now, it could be as high as £120 million, and that would be, quite high, but it could be as low, I'm hearing, as £110 million. And that sounds crazy, but if you look at the modern day market, this is what players are going for. Mostly our fault, Chelsea, because we've been splashing 100 mils on players left, right and centre. But at 100 million, 25 years old, if you can sign him to a 5-year contract, because I don't think you can go any more than sort of 5 years now, can you, after this rule change? Let me know. But if you can sign him to a 5-year contract, and you can gamble on the fact that he will bank you 20 goals per season, you're pretty much playing, 22 million per season, something like that, if we can get him at the cheaper end of that release clause. I genuinely think that he signed that contract so that he has the release clause, and I do think that if we're going to spend money, look, there's not a massive depth of strikers in the market. If, let's say, for example, we were to sign Ivan Toney, it's going to be about 70 million, you know, and he's 28. So for the extra 3 years, or 3 years less, I should say, in age, I think maybe Victor Osimhen's the better bet here. What do you guys think? Do you want to see us go for Victor Osimhen in January? Do you think it's likely, or would you leave it until the summer? Would you see how Nkunku comes back and integrates into this squad? And I want to know your score predictions for the match against Sheffield United. Do you know what? I've just got a weird feeling about this one, and it shouldn't be weird. Chelsea beating Sheffield United shouldn't be weird, but on the form we've showed over the last year or so, crazy to say it is. But I'm thinking a 3-0 Chelsea win. I really do think it. I've got a good feeling about this match. I'm going to be at the match against Newcastle in the Cup Tuesday next week, so hopefully we can go into that on a good bit of form. People, thank you for sticking around to the end of the video. If you like the content, please subscribe, hit the like button. I really appreciate it from all of you. Thank you very much to everyone that supports the channel, and more importantly, supports me. I really do mean that. I'm very, very grateful. So, people, I'll see you in the next one. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Have a good one.